This is the Ag Engineering Podcast that rolls right into the details on tools, tips, and techniques that improve you, your farm, and our world. I'm your host, Andy Chamberlain from the University of Vermont Extension, and this podcast is sponsored by Northeast SARE. Thanks for listening. Today's episode comes to you from the Hudson Valley in New York, where my colleague Chris Callahan and I visit Blue Star Farm. We specifically visited this farm to check out the heated benches they have in their greenhouse. We tag-teamed this visit, and my colleague Chris led the conversation while I primarily focused on shooting photo and videos. So make sure you check out Instagram and YouTube so you can see that content as well. I hope you enjoyed this farm visit as much as we did. Now, let me introduce you to Sue.
So I'm Sue Decker from Blue Star Farm. We are located in Stuyvesant, New York, and that's about half an hour south of Albany. We grow year-round. We're in unheated tunnels, and we're also 5 acres on rented property.
Before we get to the heated benches, let's get to know Sue and her farm just a little bit more.
Yeah, so we're, all of our houses right now are kind of in between. This is late spring brassicas mostly, and mustards. And we're slowly going to turn this over to summer crops. We concentrate more on spring greens. We're not the first ones out there with tomatoes,
Yep.
but that kind of works for us. So, and then we have some beautiful celery on the left there that we're really happy with this year. We finally got enough water, and the variety is Kelvin. And they're just nice, tall, long stalks. So that was really successful for us. And having listened to what other farmers are doing, we are keeping the plants going by harvesting the outside stalks, bunching those, and the plant just keeps giving us product.
Wow.
So that really works. And as our kales go into flowering and rob stage, we sell that as a product as well, and that makes the best use out of everything for the longest period of time.
And who are your main markets? Where do you mainly sell?
We're kind of split 50-50. We do the Hudson Farmers Market on Saturday in Hudson, which is super close for us. It's only about 20 minutes away. We're very thankful for that. It's a very strong farmers market. It's farmer run, and then we split wholesale to restaurants and to some food co-ops in the area as well. 2020 kind of revised that balance a little bit, more towards retail, less towards wholesale as restaurants closed. Now restaurants most of them have recovered, some of them haven't. So that's kind of, it's maintained a stronger retail presence for us, which is great.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah.
Overall, how would you introduce your farm? How many acres?
We have 2 locations for our farm. We have our home farm, which mostly is where our greenhouses are located. We have 3 high tunnels. 2 of them are 96 feet. And one of them is 144 feet. And then we have 3 caterpillar tunnels, which are also, we're using for summer crops and trellising, and also for winter greens growing as well. We're on very heavy clay ground here, so there's not much that we do here in the fields. We do garlic, which seems to be okay with doing a heavy ground. But mostly we're trying to build up raised beds slowly but surely so that we can do a little bit more outside work. We just put a pond in here so that we can change our irrigation practices for surface water instead of well water.
Yep.
We have extremely hard water here, so it actually, we can't really adjust our pH very easily. Because it's so high in calcium. But basically, we farm outside here about 1/4 acre, and then we have our greenhouses here, and then we farm on rental property another 5 acres.
Okay. And how long have you been a farm?
We've been here for 13 years in business. We started here in 2008, actually in 2009. And I don't really count that year because when we moved here, it was the wettest year in 100 years. And I only had this land to farm on, which was heavy clay. And by the time I got to July and we had another rain event, which was a total of 7 inches all at once, after many, many inches of rain, I decided, no, it's not going to happen this year. And I'm glad it happened the first year. And I had an idea about that. And then I sought out some more appropriate rental ground after that.
Yeah.
So that worked out really well.
And so is that where you're doing the garlic, or is the garlic mainly here?
No, the garlic is here,
Okay.
on the heavier ground.
Right. How did you come to farming?
I got involved in CSAs as a consumer. I worked in New York City for a long time, 18 years, and I was in the graphic design business.
Wow.
I got involved with CSAs. I got on the core group of that and coordinated with the farmer, Windflower Farm, Ted.
Yeah, sure.
Ted Bloomer.
My neighbor.
Yeah. Yep, he and Jan gave me my first start interning. And from there, I was coordinating as a CSA member recipes with him as the shares came down.
Yeah.
And then visited the farm a couple times and decided this is really interesting and I'd like to. I grew up with organic gardens, and so it felt almost like coming full circle on things. Yeah. And then I did a year with Ted, and then I went down to Charlestown Farm in Pennsylvania, in Phoenixville. And I had the opportunity there to work with the farmers that had developed that farm, with the idea that I would take over management after that year and run the farm for the family that owned that property. And I did that. I didn't have a lot of farming experience at that point, but I had lots of management experience. So
That must have been interesting.
yeah, it was. It was a fantastic opportunity. The family that owns the farm they're fantastic people. And we're really adventurous in seeking out new ideas and new pieces of equipment. So I got a lot of experience on all of the different pieces of equipment and tractors. And we had a 300-member CSA there. So that was a great experience. And I managed that farm for 3 years, and then we bought this property afterwards. So,
Super cool.
Yeah.
Wow. As you were talking, I was noticing, is that PVC baseboard? What's the story there?
This is not PVC, but it is I forget what kind of board it's called, but it's kind of made out of probably like a resin plastic material. Yeah, we wanted to replace our baseboards with something that we wouldn't have to keep replacing with. It's okay. It's a little thin, so it kind of has
a little bit of a wall.
Yeah, it has a little bit of a bend to it. It would be nice if it was 2-inch instead of half.
And you've got some perimeter insulation there too. Does that go
Yes.
down like a foot or two? Or?
That goes down 18 inches.
Okay.
And also on the outside of that is hardware cloth to prevent the vole action. They still get in here, but we have a very healthy population here, so I think, it's still diminished.
Yeah. Yeah. A bit
so
of a barrier.
it's
anyway.
helpful, yeah.
Great.
Yeah. And also it's just an insulation against the cold too.
Yeah.
So that cold doesn't really create. I mean, nothing freezes in here ever. The edges, nothing.
And are you adding row cover in?
We add row cover for like every 10 degrees. We'll put a cover on.
Okay.
If we have a night that's like towards the low singles or 0, we have temperature sensors in all our houses, so that we will turn on minimum heat to like 25.
Okay.
Underneath the covers.
So the row cover is every 10 degrees below freezing? Is that?
Right, that's
Yep.
kind of our
Yeah.
standard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feels about right.
Yeah. Yeah. and we'll hoop things that we have to hoop, but in general we keep everything really close to the plants because that's kind of how they stay warmer. Everything's really tall in here right now, but it's not that tall. We would hoop the mustards and the kale, and that's probably about it.
And you've got a ridge vent on this tunnel.
We have 2 houses that have ridge vents, which are great for winter growing because they vent that air without having to let the air come over your plants at this time of the year and in the fall. Drawbacks on it would be that there are spots that are leaky, but overall I'm pretty happy with it.
Great.
I bought both of those used, so everything came with them.
So did you retrofit that onto this house?
No, it came like that.
Okay.
Yeah. This is a pretty old house.
Yeah.
It's a pretty old Rimmel, original kind of peak vent house.
And so one of the things that definitely we wanted to understand a bit more and see is the starting benches.
Yes.
Can we take a peek?
Yeah, definitely. And that is out and to your right.
Thank you.
So this way, and some of them have automated sides. The transplant house has automated sides.
And are these advancing alternative or?
Yeah, they are.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, I like their controller. They're really nice people. They were really great to work with. We had an issue in here with our controller one time, and that they were really good about helping us through it.
That's great.
So, and this one is doing a lot. So
Yeah.
it's got, it's got the first stage vents, and then second stage is the sides. It also controls heat in here as well.
So do you do any exhaust fan ventilation in any of your tunnels?
We do. All of those heaters have. Oh, you mean exhaust vents, like just fans?
Right.
No.
That's great. So you're kind of up on a bit of height here. So,
Yeah.
And you mentioned you've got sort of
Yeah,
somewhat steady wind.
We have pretty good wind here. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So no, we don't have fans. The only fan that we have is on our small house. And
Okay,
the
yeah,
sides stay
yeah.
closed on that. So.
So middle of summer, peak heat, you don't feel like you're seeing
No.
any issues? That's great.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing that we do differently is to germinate lettuce, we'll put them underneath the
Okay.
benches to get that to happen. Yeah, so these are the benches.
Very cool.
I mean, this is about 5 years old. So what we did is we took 2-inch foam board. We mounted a router upside down in between 2 tables. Probably not an OSHA standard, but and then we kind of set it up so it was almost like a table saw scenario where we could set it up and run it pretty much every 2 inches, put grooves in that, and then we ran that for 8-foot boards. The length of this house is 72, so minus 8 feet on both sides is the size of our benches. And then once we completed that, we put them together. And it's just really kind of rail metal poles that we constructed with, and then concreted them in. And you can do this many different ways. We didn't. I mean, you can't walk on top of this.
Yeah.
And sometimes I wish that we could, we would have done that a little bit differently, just because I envision doing like overwintering some winter radicchios and like putting them in a little bit of sand on top of here and having a heated bench, and that would be really nice. So someday we might revamp. But then, ran the tubing. We put down some commercial-sized aluminum foil to help conductivity with the heat. And then we ran the tubing down the channels and cover it with plastic to kind of save it from watering. And then we also have a capillary mat on, which we change every year. We had originally had the idea that we could actually water from the bottom all the time, so we actually set up a drip tape and sloped this slightly, but it didn't work to my satisfaction, so we don't really do that anymore. I also felt like sometimes the plants got they needed some tougher treatment. Like our brassicas were kind of wimpy, the stems were like, they needed that overhead watering to kind of beef them up a little bit. So
would this dry out before
you'd have to really water a lot,
yeah.
And have that going for a period of time to get that uptake to be where it should be. Yeah. So we have 2 benches like that, and that's how we start out the season. The nice thing about these benches in the early part of the season and the late part of the season, because we're pretty much year-round at this point, is that we can heat everything just on these 2 benches. And it can be 9 degrees outside, and as long as we're covering this with row cover, it'll stay 50 degrees in here, which saves tremendously on propane, because we don't have to heat a 30 by 72 foot house on a 9-degree night.
And this is heated by a Tagaki.
This is an on-demand. Yep, on-demand Tagaki system. We did try, because we have a 20K solar system here, we did try an electric water heater, but it doesn't really make sense to do it. It's really much more efficient to go with an on-demand system.
Was the electric not keeping up? Or?
With the electric just costing too much.
Okay.
Yeah. And, we've grown since then, so we've exceeded the capacity of a 20K system, really, at least to get to net zero.
Yeah.
Occasionally, we have a month that goes to net zero.
So this is, I think, 120,000 BTU an hour on-demand hot water heater, and it's supporting these 2 benches, which are just shy of 72 feet?
Yes. Yeah, they're about 66 feet long.
And so that one heater comes into, it looks like 2 manifolds.
Yep, 2 manifolds, and we are able to shut this bench off and heat only this bench. So the manifolds will come in here. So there's an outgoing and then a return.
And that's all PVC for the main manifold, and then
it's all the PEX kind of tubing.
Okay.
The PEX system. We have the Delta T solutions.
So there's a hole of a certain size you drill in the manifold, and then these are barbed fittings that just snap in?
Yeah, these guys come pre-drilled. They can come pre-drilled. Okay. And then these guys snap in.
Oh, the manifolds are from Delta T, I see.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then the tubing comes on a long roll, and you can roll it out for as long as you need.
And, I've heard from some growers that they feel there's a bit of sticker shock on the Delta T stuff and some of the heat mat stuff. And how did you land where you landed on that?
I didn't think that. This was 5 years ago. For the investment of what I can do with these 2 66-foot benches, it's not really. It totally pays for itself.
Okay.
I've had no problem whatsoever. And we just, we have we don't just do water, we do the glycol in the system because of our scenario that we don't heat the interior of this if we don't have to. So that keeps the system running all year, and I don't have to worry about draining it which is a task that would probably get set aside until it was a problem.
This is really cool.
Yeah, we really like it. It's really fantastic. You can do so much with 2 heated benches. And then we've set up this kind of overhead watering misting system probably 2 years ago. And now we start our strawberry tips on here.
Okay.
We have that set up on a timer, so it goes off every 10
for
minutes.
The irrigation. Okay.
For the misting on them when we first transplant them and have the shoots starting, roots.
So that was a question I had is this is pretty permanent.
It is.
And so you make use of it not just for your early spring starts, but throughout
all year.
Yeah.
All year. I mean,
so what's the succession of starts that come through here?
Well, when we're starting our main season, onions are all going to be like the first things that we start on here. Celeriac is going to get started, and then, we're eventually going to move through summer seedlings. I mean, every seedling practically gets started on here until it gets too hot, and it doesn't really matter.
So these were here.
Yes. Yes.
A couple weeks, 3 months?
Yeah, a couple weeks.
3 months ago?
Couple weeks,
okay.
yeah. Until they are sized up enough that we're trimming them like really regularly now, once a week. And eventually things like lettuce that want it cooler don't,
Yeah.
I mean, the heat bench is not going off during the main
Right,
part of the season anyway.
So then it really becomes sort of a spot where you can have starts going.
Right.
Set up for misting, or whatever watering you need.
Yeah, and it's run from one temperature gauge. So there's a controller here that we can set to any temperature that we want to. You have like many different varieties of plants that want all kinds of germination temperatures. So you have to pick a medium average and say we're good.
And know the hot spots and cold spots.
Know the hot spots. I mean, your hot spots are going to be mainly in the front first bench, and then as the run goes to the back, it's going to be a little bit cooler. And so you can have some microclimate that way.
And these loops, they go down and back.
Correct.
So looks like
Correct.
This one goes down and comes back to this?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yes, I'm not sure which is the intake.
Yeah, that's right.
One or the other.
One or the
But
other.
they're kind of connected closely.
Yes, yes. So it's a 66-foot run and then comes back 66 feet. So it's a sizable run. Yeah, but it's really nice. We're in the process. We grow a lot of peppers here, so those peppers are all started in row trays, of course, and now we're potting them up to 50-cell trays. And they can all continue on the heat at night. I mean, it's April 27th, and we're going to go down to 34 degrees tonight. So, I'm very thankful that we got a nice warm greenhouse here.
There's a lot of nice warm real estate for
Yeah.
sure, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah, and we tend to overwinter rosemary in pots, so all of those can come back here and hang out for the winter, and we don't have to worry about them dying.
So over the winter, do you sort of dial back to just one section of one of these? Or?
Yeah, we'll typically dial back to one bench and then cover that regularly. But as soon as we start seeding onions, we've pretty much got 2 benches going. And we try to, heat for as long as we can with just the benches so that we can save on propane in that early part of the year.
What's the temperature set point you run them at? Usually?
It depends. When we are overwintering, we might be setting the benches to like 45, 50 degrees. And then as we get into more seedlings that would like a little bit more heat, we'll take it to 60. Right now it's up to 60. So that slowly creeps up as the season moves on and we get more plants on that might want a little bit more heat.
Yeah, that's not super hot though even.
No, it's not. It's not. I mean, a lot of things want to germinate at 70 degrees, but we're compromising here. And, it's also based on judging how your season is going and where you're at in your field prep. And
Well, you're at 70 today, even though it's set at 60, it looks like, if I understand that correctly.
Passively, it's getting to 70 degrees here. So
heat's going backwards.
So if you were to do it over again, what would you do differently?
Well, I would definitely strengthen the structure itself. so that you could potentially entertain the idea of like, a shallow soil or sand scenario to grow overwintered radicchio in. There's some really beautiful varieties, pink and purple, and just gorgeous. So we've experimented with that in other ways. But that would be something I would change. And then just having, because we started out with electric hot water heater and we relocated that under the bench, our plumbing is not as accessible as I'd like it to be. So if, at some point in the future, we'll probably tear this whole system down and make it, one streamlined system, so it's all accessible. And, the things that might wear out or need replacing would be your circulation pump, which we have located down on the leg here. So making that accessible and probably putting in cutoffs on both sides would help you exchange that out very quickly if it did fail. But other than that, I think it's good. I mean, we have built-in drains to drain the system too, but like I said, we've not, we added the glycol and we kind of made it excessive so that it's not, if we do add water into the system
you
as
don't
things.
Need to re-add,
Yeah, exactly.
So that's been in. You've had the glycol in for
5 years.
5. And have you had to check that at all? For it sort of wears out over time, from what I understand.
We haven't. It probably is going to be coming up on that at this point.
I have to check mine too.
The only thing that happens here, because the system's not really in use through the main part of the season, is when we get to the fall, there's usually some air in the system. So we kind of have to burp the air out of it. We keep like a little bucket here, just to carry that out of the system. And this, the on-demand heater has some water that condenses also. So, for this, there is a pipe here that can vent out of the system, but we actually just have a bucket there because it's going to freeze normally if it's going out.
One of the really nice things about these heaters is they're modulating, so that like they have a minimum firing rate of, like, in this case 15,000, and it can go all the way up to 120,000. So it's really, you're only burning what you need to support the temperature increase, which is just really amazing.
Yeah, and it's when I bought this, they will tell you when you buy it that it's not meant to be used for the purpose that we're using it. So it may break the warranty on it or whatever, but it works really well. Yeah. The one thing I know has, I wouldn't say it's been a problem, but it's one thing to be aware of, is they have a minimum flow rate typically in order to run. And for what you're doing, you're well over that, but in some cases that can cause a problem. So making sure the circulator is going to have enough flow to trip that flow switch to fire it up. Exactly.
That's great. I love the routed recessed.
That was fun.
Yeah.
I wish I had more pictures of that when we were doing it.
You sent me some that were really. I got.
Must have been covered in.
We were. I mean, this was a new house at the time, and so none of this was here, and we could use this as a workshop. So it worked really well. And it wasn't my original idea. I mean, another farmer kind of turned me on to this idea, and I was like, yes, I want it. I think also in the construction of this, I might. The benches are pretty high, and I thought that would be a good idea for us managing. But for the watering, I would actually make them low, like we have on the pallets.
Good point.
Yeah. We do set our curtain opening on this side where we've got all of our baby plants to not come up and over that, so it's lower, and the breeze comes in under the benches.
Do you ever wish you had a smaller zone of heat mat?
Yes. Yeah. If you could set it up in different zones, and the thing that we set up here is that bench on the outside of the house is the first zone, and I would have set it up opposite. You want the interior.
A really warm.
Yeah, you don't want to be heating against the outside. And we did that because we pushed that up against the side because we wanted to save space. We originally thought, well, let's do the whole house like this. But then I thought,
and you'd start on the edge. Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. So yeah, and we do notice a growth difference, because of that too. That things in the last 3 rows of the row tray are germinating much slower. and even on the interior bench, the inside here is much warmer than the outside edges.
Yeah. What's got you excited about this year?
Well, we're on new ground, so that's going to be frightening and challenging and exciting too. It's sandier soil, so I imagine that some things will do better and some things might not. But we're building a new building there, so that's really exciting to have a new space to work out of and get organized. And having been doing this now for 16 years, it's not as daunting to say, okay, I need a building and this is what I need. I need a 30 by 40 foot space and it needs to have concrete on it, and I need a drain and and I need water and and a run-in shed, and this is how it should look. So that part of it is nice.
What do you attribute that to, other than just the time? I mean, have there been other sort of influences that have made that an easier?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always a matter of experience and time growing different things. Quite honestly, when we bought this property, I had moved a greenhouse with me from the farm that I came from, which is an 18 by 24 foot greenhouse. And I was tickled pink that this was the best greenhouse ever. And this was it. I wouldn't need anything else. So 3 high tunnels later and 3 caterpillar tunnels, and I'm always thinking of more. We knew we were here when we rounded the corner. We knew we were here. So, oh yeah, there's some high tunnels. Yeah. So I think a lot of it is experience, and I really like researching and trying to make things better and better. The other thing that we're experimenting with is something called structured water. We've done a couple of different experiments with that. The device looks like a filter, and basically it energizes the water molecules so that they are organized, and cells can take that in quicker, so they don't have to expend energy actually organizing those molecules, because every cell, whether it's in a human body or a plant body, has to do that organization first in order to accept it into the cell. Yeah, so we did a test with onion seedlings, and we had a control group that just got our regular water, and we had another group that got 1 filter at the hydrant, and another that got a filter or it's not really a filter, but a unit at the hydrant and a unit on the wand. So it got an extra kind of zap. And the difference between the 2 that had the units on was negligible, but the difference between the control and those was obvious.
Huh. Is it electrolytic? Is it or?
No, it's this particular unit is structural.
Okay.
So it's kind of, I guess the closest thing you could say is it's simulating kind of a rocky bed of a creek, but in a very modulated way. Unfortunately, with the units that we had, whether it's our water or the unit, we couldn't replicate the process the following year. So I'm working with other companies to decide,
what
changed.
Yeah.
And also, people who might have more experience with agricultural applications.
Yeah.
So we've started communicating with a company out of Croatia, actually.
Okay. I saw something on this not too long ago, and I thought it had to do with sanitization, surface sanitization through structured water.
Structured water probably has that capacity as well.
Yeah. Interesting. Well,
yeah.
Cool. If you were giving advice to Sue Decker 17 years ago? What would you...
That's a good question. I would say build bigger than you think you need. I would say be comfortable running your own race. There's lots of other farmers. There's lots of other techniques that you can compare yourself. There's always examples that you won't live up to. Run your own race. Look at what you have accomplished and just make sure you're improving on that year after year.
That's great.
Yeah.
Good advice for anybody.
Yeah, that's some good wisdom right there.
Love it.
Yeah. It's sometimes hard to keep that all in mind.
Yeah.
And I think year after year, I always have to say that to myself.
That's great.
Because there's always, things that you can compare yourself to say, oh, well, I really screwed up on that.
Well, look at where I've come from.
Yeah, there's also successes too. Right. So, find good people. Find good people and pay them as much as you can because it's well worth it over time. I mean, some of my employees have been with me for 12 years now.
Wow.
And that's amazing. And I couldn't do what I do if I didn't have them with me and have their kind of experience with my system. So every day I'm grateful for that.
That's great. Yeah, it must be in the back of your mind, even subconsciously, when deciding to build a 30 by 40 new building and having it be something you're confident about doing. Knowing that you've got a crew that's there.
Exactly.
And they're for you.
Exactly. And I can pay attention to subcontractors. And not worry that my harvest is not going out to left field.
whatever this year's non-crop project might be. Right. Yeah, that's great.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If I can ask you or direct you to do one thing, that is to go to the website for this podcast, agengpodcast.com. That's agengpodcast.com. There you'll find the show notes. You'll find links to the farmer who we chatted with today, as well as photos or videos from the call when I visited the farm. If you've got some feedback to share, my contact information's on there, or you can leave me a voicemail, and you can do that right from the link in the description in the mobile app you're listening to this to. So go ahead and do that. Thanks again for listening, and I hope you have a great day.